Howdy, and welcome to LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. This is my reading wrap-up for the month of August, which, to be honest, felt a little bit slumpy. I didn't read a ton, but I enjoy what I read, and I want to briefly talk about a book that I read at the beginning of July that, for some reason, I didn't mention in my July reading wrap-up. In August, I had a goal of finishing the last book on one of my bingo cards. It was a spring and summer seasonal bingo card for our female gaze science fiction and fantasy. I had one book left on it. It's one that has been sitting on my shelf for several years since I found it at the used bookstore. The Crystal Cave, this is an Arthurian retelling, although it focuses on Merlin, beginning when he is a young boy, and in this story it goes through him becoming a young man. From the time Merlin was a young boy, he was always a little bit different, kind of outcast, the bastard child of his mother, who is the daughter of the current king. She has never told anyone who his father is and refuses any attempt by her father to marry her off for an alliance's sake. His uncle and his grandfather are not necessarily thrilled by his existence. However, his mother loves him, and he manages to stay out of trouble until the politics and the war really starts brewing. The magic starts impacting him, and through him impacting the war. And he is driven basically to start shaping elements of a prophecy. The prophecy, of course, being the birth and rule of the eventual King Arthur. What struck me most about this novel is the writing style and the way the author can use few words to evoke deep emotion and to clearly paint a picture. So it's rich writing, but it's not overwritten. It's almost sparse, and yet it just cuts right through to the quick. There are 2 other books in this series. Who knows how long it's going to take me to get to these, but we have The Hollow Hills and The Last Enchantment, which I assume continues Merlin's adventure as he begins to raise Arthur, and then the prophecies continue to unfold. I'm really glad I finally read this book. It originally was brought to my attention because this author was an inspiration to some of my favorite authors, so I was just really interested to find out what they so loved from how this book was written, and then kind of what elements of that they tried to bring to their own work. But ultimately, this did feel a bit like a set-up story in the face of the Arthurian legends that everyone knows. Speaking of favorite authors, I was approved by NetGalley for an e-arc of Naomi Novik's forthcoming novella called The Summer War, which comes out in a few months, but I couldn't resist going ahead and reading it. The way the magic suffuses the setting and the elements of the tricksy kind of dark fae pulled in as the enemies, it feels like a fairy tale retelling, but I couldn't actually name which fairy tale, but that's how it's written. The main character is the daughter of this king, and it really focuses on her relationships with her brothers. One who becomes somewhat of a pariah, who he breaks her heart when she was a little girl, and she unintentionally curses him. She did not know until that moment that she had this magical power, and in that moment she curses her brother, instantly regrets it, and wants to work to undo this, but he's gone. And when her brother leaves, her father becomes despondent, and now suddenly she becomes a bigger token in her father's power plays within the kingdom. He's a powerful and very successful general. He has been victorious against the Summerlings. It's like the enemy that live across the sea, and it's very fae, dark fae, dangerous, tricksy. Oaths are important. I don't want to say too much, but it's really about your words coming back to haunt you, and how these unintentional magical oaths impact the people that you love. It's also about being true to yourself in a variety of ways. I just don't want to get too much into it because it's a novella. It reads fairly quickly, and I don't want to spoil anything, but this was an example of Naomi Novik writing that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I think it's a great one to sit down with for an evening and just get swept away in. Changing tones and settings a lot. My husband and I have been listening to the audiobook of Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is a literary RPG. I've never read lit RPG before, and to be honest, we aren't done with it yet, but we are so close to the end that I just want to go ahead and talk about it now. It is dark. It's humorous, especially if you have familiarity with role-playing games and Dungeons and Dragons, things like that. But the themes are quite dark. When aliens invade, they basically destroy the world except for anyone who happened to be outside at the time. Carl, who was outside trying to bring his ex-girlfriend's cat in from the cold, gets swept up with the cat and sent down to the dungeon where they have to play the game in order to survive. And of course, the various alien races across the universe are all tuning in to watch each level of this dungeon. The main goal is following Carl as he struggles to kind of keep his humanity while also being forced to do very brutal, horrible things. So not only are we following Carl and Princess Donut, the cat, as they are leveling up this dungeon, but they are encountering other crawlers, and you're really seeing all sides of humanity, but also the other aliens that are forced to play. They're compelled to do this by this overarching kind of evil corporation, which I'm sure we're going to learn more and more about as the series progresses. I'm intrigued by this. It is dark though, and kind of heavy content to try to think through and put yourself in those shoes. I could definitely understand that the content or even the humor style may not be for everybody. The last book I want to mention is one that I read at the beginning of July that just slipped my mind when I did my July reading wrap-up, a science fiction called Symbiosis. This is a book about a human colony on a far-flung world, and each chapter follows a different generation of these colonists as they are trying to eke out a living there and form a new civilization. One thing that I found really fresh and engaging in the story is that the potential for the sentient life that the colonists really have to deal with may actually be from the plant life, and how that previously established life form can make changes to the world that the colonists are living on, whether to hurt them or to help them. Part of the story is the inter-colonists' turmoil with how they should approach the rest of the sentient life on the planet. And part of it is how they interface with that intelligent life to try to collaborate and grow stronger together. I think the story does very interesting things with the preconceived notions that a reader might bring to the story. Although you don't get super attached to each individual characters, it's very compelling to try to see how each generation and each chapter is thriving or not on this colony planet. If you enjoy first contact, human colonizing other planets type of stories, this is one that I would recommend that you pick up. It's really not that long, and if you're interested, it's the first in a short series. I think something that's great about these books that I've recently read is that they're sticking with me for different reasons. The Summer War and The Crystal Cave, I really admired the craft, like how they were written, and then thinking about these different sides of humanity from Symbiosis and Dungeon Crawler Carl. If you've read any of the books that I just mentioned, please let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought about it, if you liked it or you didn't, or if you have suggestions for books I should pick up based on these books. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, don't forget to support your local library. Thanks.